The gun was still warm in my hand when I realized I had nowhere to go. Christmas Eve. Most people were home with their families, wrapped in the glow of tree lights and laughter. I was standing in an empty precinct parking lot, badge heavy in my pocket, wondering if I'd just thrown away the only life I'd ever known. My sergeant's words still echoed in my skull. Take some time, Carter. Figure out what you want. What I wanted was to rewind 6 hours, 2, before I'd frozen in that alley, before my partner got hurt because I couldn't pull the trigger, before everyone looked at me like I was broken. My phone buzzed. Mom's name lit up the screen. I couldn't answer. Couldn't tell her that her golden boy, the cop she bragged about to everyone at church, had just been put on mandatory leave. That I was unraveling and didn't know how to stop it. The snow was falling harder now, coating my windshield in white. I should drive home. But home was just an apartment with blank walls and a fridge full of expired takeout. Home was where I'd lie awake, replaying every mistake, every moment of hesitation that had defined my last 3 months on the force. I didn't realize I was driving until I passed the city limits. No destination in mind, just away. Away from the precinct, the pitying looks, the weight of expectations I couldn't carry anymore. The highway stretched endlessly before me. And somewhere in the blur of snow and streetlights, I felt something close to relief. Out here, I wasn't Officer Carter Hayes. I was just a man driving through a snowstorm on Christmas Eve. Lost and alone, and finally, terrifyingly free. The car died somewhere outside Cedarwood. A town so small, I almost missed it. 1 minute the engine was humming, the next it was sputtering and gasping like a dying animal. I coasted to the shoulder, hazards blinking weakly into the darkness. Perfect, just perfect. I sat there for a long moment, forehead pressed against the steering wheel. Of course this was happening. Of course, my piece of shit car would break down in the middle of nowhere on the coldest night of the year. I should have been angry, but I was too tired, too hollowed out. When I finally stepped outside, the cold hit me like a physical force. I'd left my heavy coat at the precinct, had only my uniform jacket and the desperate hope that I could flag down a passing car, but the road was empty. No headlights in either direction, just endless snow and the distant glow of town lights maybe a mile away. I started walking. Each step was a small act of rebellion against the voice in my head that said, I deserved this. That this was karma for every time I'd hesitated, every call I'd second-guessed. My hands were numb within minutes. My face stung where the wind cut across my cheeks. But I kept moving, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant drowning. The town, when I finally reached it, looked like something out of a Hallmark movie. Main Street lined with old-fashioned street lamps. Storefronts decorated with wreaths and twinkling lights, a massive Christmas tree in the town square. Everything was closed, the streets deserted. It would have been charming if I wasn't half frozen and entirely lost. I wandered aimlessly looking for anything open. A gas station, a diner, even a church where I could warm up and figure out my next move. But everything was dark, locked up tight. Families were inside their homes, living the kind of Christmas Eve I'd only ever seen in movies. That's when I saw the light. A single window, glowing warm and golden in a 2-story house at the end of a quiet street. The rest of the house was lit up too, with soft white lights outlining the porch and an inflatable Santa tilted drunkenly in the front yard. But it was that one window, with its curtains pulled back just enough to reveal movement inside, that drew me forward. I shouldn't have approached. I had no reason to knock on a stranger's door on Christmas Eve, especially looking like I did Duniform rumpled, a face probably red and raw from the cold, desperation written in every line of my body. But my feet carried me up the walkway anyway, through the snow that had been partially shoveled, onto a porch decorated with handmade paper snowflakes taped to the window. I raised my hand to knock, then hesitated. What was I even going to say? Hi, I'm a cop who just had a mental breakdown, and my car died, and I'm basically homeless for the night. That would go over well. Before I could decide, the door swung open. Jesus Christ, you're going to freeze to death out here. The man standing in the doorway was maybe 30, with dark curly hair pushed back from his face and eyes that were the clearest gray I'd ever seen. He was wearing jeans and a sweater that had seen better days, and he was looking at me like I was a puzzle he needed to solve immediately. My voice came out rough, unused. "I'm sorry. My car broke down. I was just looking for somewhere warm." Those gray eyes flickered over my uniform, my badge, my face. Something shifted in his expression, though I couldn't read what. "You're a cop." "Yeah." I didn't know why I felt the need to justify it. "From the city." "I was just driving in. Get inside." He stepped back, holding the door wider. "Before you lose a finger to frostbite, should have been more cautious. Should have at least questioned why this stranger was inviting me into his home so readily. But the warmth rolling out from inside was too tempting. And I was too tired to care about protocol or common sense. The moment I stepped inside, I was hit with the smell of cinnamon and pine. The house was small but cozy, decorated for Christmas in a way that felt lived in rather than staged. A real tree stood in the corner of the living room, covered in ornaments that looked handmade. Stockings hung from a mantel. And there were toys scattered across the floor building blocks, action figures. A stuffed dinosaur that had seen better days. "I'm Marcus," the man said, closing the door behind me. "Marcus Reed. Carter Hayes." My teeth were starting to chatter. "I really appreciate this. I'll just warm up for a minute and then I'll get out of your hair." Marcus gave me a look that clearly said he didn't believe that for a second. "When's the last time you ate?" The question caught me off guard. I tried to remember and came up blank. Breakfast? Maybe? Time had gotten fuzzy somewhere around the third hour of sitting in my sergeant's office. Listening to him explain why I was being benched. "I'll take that as a no," Marcus said dryly. He gestured toward the couch. "Sit. I'll make you something. You don't have to sit." "Officer Hayes." There was a firmness in his voice that reminded me of my training sergeant. The one who taught me everything I knew about being a cop. The kind of authority that wasn't asking, it was telling. So I sat. Marcus disappeared into what I assumed was the kitchen, leaving me alone in the living room. I looked around, trying to piece together who this man was. The toy suggested a kid, but I didn't hear any sounds of children in the house. There were pictures on the mantel, Marcus with a little boy, maybe 5 or 6, both of them grinning at the camera. The boy had the same dark curls, the same gray eyes. "That's my son," Marcus said, returning with a steaming mug. "Eli. He's asleep upstairs." I took the mug-hot chocolate, rich and sweet, and wrapped my frozen hands around it. "Just the two of you?" "Yeah." Something flickered across Marcus's face, too quick for me to catch. Just us. There was a story there I could tell. But I wasn't about to pry into a stranger's life. Not when he was showing me more kindness than I deserved. We sat in silence for a few minutes while I drank the hot chocolate and felt sensation gradually return to my fingers and toes. Marcus settled into an armchair across from me, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not suspicious exactly, but careful. Like he was trying to figure me out. So, he finally said, "What's a city cop doing driving through Cedarwood on Christmas Eve?" It was a fair question. I wished I had a good answer. Needed to clear my head, I said, which was technically true. Didn't realize how far I'd driven until the car gave out. Must be some head clearing. Marcus's tone was neutral, but there was something knowing in his eyes. Like he could see right through my half-truth to the mess underneath. I looked down at my mug, suddenly exhausted. It's been a rough few months, I can tell. I glanced up sharply, defensive. But Marcus wasn't judging me. If anything, he looked sympathetic. Understanding, even. "I've been there," he said quietly. "The needing to drive until you run out of road? The feeling like you can't breathe in your own life?" He paused. "Whatever it is you're running from, you're safe here tonight." Something in my chest cracked open. I didn't even know this man, but those words, "you're safe," here hit me harder than they should have. Because I hadn't felt safe in months. Not since the first time I froze on a call. Not since I started questioning everything I thought I knew about myself and my job and what I was supposed to be. "Thank you," I managed. And it came out rougher than I intended. Marcus just nodded. Like he understood all the things I wasn't saying. Then, from upstairs, came a small voice. "Daddy." Marcus was on his feet immediately. "I'll be right back." He disappeared up the stairs, and I heard the soft murmur of voices, Marcus's low and soothing, the child's higher and sleepy. I shouldn't have been eavesdropping, but the house was small and sound carried. "Is Santa coming?" the boy asked. "Of course he is, but only if you go back to sleep." "Is there someone here?" A pause. Then, gently, "Just someone who needed help. Now close your eyes, buddy. I'll be right here." I listened to Marcus settle his son back to sleep, humming something soft and tuneless, and felt something twist in my chest. This man, this stranger, had opened his door to me without hesitation, had given me warmth and hot chocolate and a place to sit, even though I was a cop, and cops made a lot of people nervous. Had done it all while being a single dad on Christmas Eve, trying to preserve his kids' belief in Santa Claus. When Marcus came back downstairs, I was standing. "I should go. I don't want to intrude on your Christmas. Sit down, Hayes." Marcus crossed his arms. "Where exactly are you planning to go? Your car's dead. It's Christmas Eve, and everything in town is closed. The nearest hotel is 30 miles away." He had a point. A frustrating, logical point. "You can sleep on the couch," Marcus continued. "I'll give you some blankets. In the morning, we'll figure out your car situation." "Can't just, yes, you can." Marcus's gray eyes held mine, steady and sure. "It's Christmas. Nobody should be alone on Christmas." Now the words hung between us, heavier than they should have been, because he was right. And because the alternative, walking back out into the snow, trying to find my way to a hotel that might not even exist, felt impossible. "Okay," I said finally. "Thank you, don't mention it." Marcus grabbed some blankets from a closet, along with a pillow that looked well used. He set them on the couch, then glanced at me. "You need anything else? Food? Water?" "I'm good." I was still holding the empty mug, I realized. I set it down carefully on the coffee table. Marcus nodded, but he didn't move to leave. He stood there for a moment, studying me with that same careful expression. "You're going to be okay, you know. Whatever it is you're dealing with." I wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that there was a version of my future where I wasn't drowning in doubt and fear and the weight of expectations I couldn't meet, but belief felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. "Get some sleep, Hayes," Marcus said softly. Then he headed upstairs, leaving me alone in the glow of the Christmas tree. I lay down on the couch, pulling the blankets over me. They smelled like laundry detergent and something else, something warm and comforting that I couldn't quite name. Through the window, I could see the snow still falling, soft and relentless. I should have felt out of place. Should have felt like an intruder in this stranger's home, with his handmade ornaments and his sleeping son upstairs. But instead, for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. I closed my eyes and let the exhaustion take me. Awoke to the sound of laughter. For a disoriented moment, I didn't know where I was. The couch beneath me was unfamiliar. The room filled with early morning light that filtered through curtains I didn't recognize. Then memory clicked back into place, the broken-down car, the snow. Marcus Reed opening his door to a stranger on Christmas Eve. The laughter came again, high and bright. A child's laughter. I sat up slowly, running a hand through my hair. My body ached from sleeping on a couch. My uniform was wrinkled beyond repair, and I probably looked like hell. But I felt more rested than I had in weeks. "Daddy, look, Santa came." I heard Marcus's responding chuckle, warm and genuine. "I see that, buddy. Why don't you see what's in your stocking?" I should have given them privacy. Should have stayed quiet on the couch until they were done with their Christmas morning. But something drew me toward the archway that led to the living room. Where I could see without being fully visible, Marcus was sitting on the floor by the Christmas tree, still in pajama pants and a t-shirt, his dark curls messy from sleep. Next to him was Eli, who looked exactly like his picture, small and energetic, with his father's eyes and an expression of pure joy as he pulled a candy cane from his stocking. "I open a present now?" Eli asked, already reaching for a wrapped box. "One," Marcus agreed. "Then we'll make breakfast." I watched as Eli tore into the present with the enthusiasm only a kid on Christmas morning could muster. It was a set of art supplies markers and colored pencils and a thick pad of drawing paper. Not expensive, but clearly chosen with care. Thank you, Santa. Eli threw his arms around Marcus's neck. Marcus hugged him back. And there was so much love in that simple gesture that I felt like I was intruding on something sacred. This was their moment, their Christmas morning, and I was just a stranger who'd crashed their holiday. I must have made a sound. Because suddenly Marcus's head turned toward the archway. Our eyes met, and for a heartbeat, neither of us moved. "Morning," Marcus said, his voice carrying easily across the space. "Merry Christmas." Eli's head popped up. "Who's that?" "That's Mr. Hayes," Marcus explained. "His car broke down last night, so he's staying with us for a little bit." Eli studied me with the unfiltered curiosity of a 6-year-old. "Are you a police officer?" I glanced down at my uniform, which answered that question pretty clearly. "Yeah, I am. Cool." Eli's face lit up. "Do you have a gun?" "Eli," Marcus said gently. "Remember what we talked about? Personal space and polite questions." "Oh, right." Eli looked appropriately chastened for about 2 seconds. "Sorry, Mr. Hayes. It's okay. I couldn't help smiling a little. And you can call me Carter?" I stepped fully into the room, suddenly very aware of how out of place I looked. Marcus and Eli in their pajamas, the Christmas tree, the torn wrapping paper scattered across the floor, and me in my wrinkled police uniform, an intruder in their perfect morning. "I can go upstairs," I offered. "Let you guys finish your Christmas. Don't be ridiculous." Marcus stood, brushing off his knees. "You hungry?" "I was about to make pancakes, chocolate chip pancakes," Eli added enthusiastically. "They're the best." I should have declined. Should have found some way to excuse myself and give them their space. But the offer was too tempting, and Marcus was already heading toward the kitchen like it was decided. "Come on," he called over his shoulder. "Make yourself useful and help me mix the batter." So I followed him into the kitchen, leaving Eli happily playing with his new art supplies in the living room. The kitchen was small and bright, with sunlight streaming through the window over the sink. Marcus moved around the space with easy familiarity, pulling ingredients from cabinets and drawers. "You don't have to do this," I said, as he handed me a mixing bowl. "I know." Marcus cracked eggs into the bowl with practiced efficiency. "But I want to. Besides, Eli would be disappointed if you disappeared before he got to show off his new markers." I started mixing the batter, watching as Marcus measured out chocolate chips with precision. He moved with a kind of grace that came from years of routine, from being someone's entire world. There were drawings stuck to the fridge with magnet stick figures in bright colors, and "I love Daddy" spelled out in wobbly letters. "How long have you been on your own?" I asked before I could stop myself. Marcus's hand paused for just a second on the bag of chocolate chips. 3 years. Eli's mom left when he was 3. "I'm sorry, don't be." Marcus poured the chocolate chips into the batter I was mixing. "We're better off. Some people aren't meant to be parents." There was no bitterness in his voice, just matter-of-fact acceptance, like he'd made peace with it a long time ago. "What about you?" Marcus asked. "Family. My mom, back in the city. A sister in California." Kept mixing, focusing on the swirl of batter rather than Marcus's too perceptive gaze. "We're not that close anymore, because you're a cop. Because I'm a lot of things she doesn't understand." The words hung there, heavier than I'd intended. Marcus didn't push, just nodded like he got it. Like he knew what it was like to be something your family couldn't quite accept. We finished the pancakes in comfortable silence, then carried plates into the living room, where Eli had already set up an elaborate display of his new markers. Christmas music played softly from somewhere, and outside the window. The world was blanketed in fresh snow. It was perfect. Almost painfully perfect. The kind of Christmas morning I'd imagined as a kid but never quite experienced, warm and safe and full of easy laughter. "These are really good," I said around a mouthful of pancake. Eli beamed at me. "Daddy makes the best pancakes. He makes the best everything." Marcus ruffled his son's hair affectionately. Flatterer. We ate together, Eli chattering away about Santa and reindeer and whether there was really a North Pole. Marcus answered his questions with patience and humor, sometimes catching my eye across the room like we were sharing a private joke. And maybe we were. Maybe there was something absurdly funny about a burned-out cop spending Christmas morning with a single dad and his son, pretending like this was normal, like I belonged here. After breakfast, Eli insisted on showing me every single drawing he'd ever made. Marcus tried to intervene. "Buddy, I'm sure Carter doesn't want to see all of them," but I waved him off. The truth was, I didn't mind. There was something soothing about sitting on the floor with a 6-year-old, looking at crayon drawings of dinosaurs and spaceships and a family of stick figures that was just Eli and his dad. "This one's my favorite," Eli said, pulling out a drawing that was more detailed than the others. It showed 2 stick figures holding hands in front of a house. "That's me and Daddy. We're happy." Something in my chest tightened. I can tell. Marcus appeared in the doorway, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. He passed one to me, then settled onto the couch above us. "All right, Eli, give Carter a break. Why don't you go play with your new art stuff for a bit?" Eli grumbled, but obeyed, spreading out on the other side of the room with his markers. Marcus and I sat in silence for a moment, sipping our coffee. It was good coffee, strong and black, exactly how I liked it. "He likes you, Marcus," said quietly. "Eli doesn't warm up to people that fast. He's a good kid." "Yeah, he is." Marcus's expression softened as he watched his son. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough for him. Being a single parent, working 2 jobs, it's not exactly the life I imagined." "You're doing more than enough," I said, and I meant it. "Anyone can see how loved he is." Marcus looked at me then, really looked at me, and something passed between us. Recognition, maybe. An understanding that we were both carrying things we didn't talk about, both trying to be better than we thought we were.
What about you?"
Marcus asked. "What's your story, Carter Hayes?" It was the question I'd been dreading. Because my story wasn't neat or simple, it was messy and complicated and full of things I hadn't admitted to anyone, barely even to myself. But sitting there in Marcus's living room, with the Christmas tree lights twinkling and Eli humming to himself in the corner, I found myself wanting to be honest, wanting to let someone see the truth. "I'm not a very good cop," I said finally. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Somehow I doubt that." "No, I mean it." I set down my coffee, needing something to do with my hands. I freeze. On calls in the field. My partner got hurt 3 weeks ago because I hesitated, and now I'm on leave while they decide if I'm fit for duty. The words came out flat, matter of fact, like I was reading from a report instead of confessing my biggest failure. "Is that what you were running from last night?" Marcus asked gently. That end trailed off. This was the part I didn't know how to say, the part that I'd been building for months, maybe years. I don't know if I want to be a cop anymore. I don't know if I ever really wanted it. There, I'd said it. The thought that had been circling my brain since the first time I'd frozen on a call, since I'd started dreading putting on the uniform every morning. Marcus didn't look shocked or disappointed. He just nodded, like he'd suspected as much. "So what do you want?" Nobody had asked me that. My sergeant had asked what was wrong with me. My mom had asked when I was going to get my act together. But nobody had asked what I actually wanted. "I don't know," I admitted. "I've been a cop for 5 years. It's all I know." "That's not true." Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You know how to drink hot chocolate? How to look at a kid's drawings like they're the most important things in the world? How to make someone feel safe just by being present?" I laughed, but it came out shaky. "That's not exactly a career path." "Maybe not, but it's a start." Marcus held my gaze. "You don't have to have all the answers right now, Carter. You just have to be honest about the questions." Should have sounded like a greeting card. Should have felt like empty platitudes from a stranger who didn't really know me. But instead, it felt like permission. Permission to not have my shit together, to not know what came next. "Thank you," I said quietly. "For what?" "For this. All of it." I gestured vaguely at the room. "You didn't have to help me. I know." Marcus smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "But I wanted to." He sat there for a moment longer. the silence comfortable now. Eli had moved on from drawing to playing with his building blocks, constructing what looked like an elaborate castle. Christmas music still played softly in the background. This wasn't my life. This wasn't my family. But for just a moment, it felt like it could be. Marcus's phone rang around noon, shattering the peaceful bubble we'd been living in. He glanced at the screen and grimaced. I have to take this. Work. He stepped into the kitchen, leaving me alone with Eli. The conversation was muffled, but I could hear the tension in Marcus's voice. When he came back, his expression was tight. Emergency at the garage. Pipe burst, and the whole place is flooding. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly stressed. I have to go deal with it. You work at a garage? I own one. Marcus was already moving, grabbing keys from a hook by the door. Well, go on. It's not much, but it's mine. What about Eli? I asked. Marcus paused, clearly torn. I'll have to bring him with me. Mrs. Patterson next door usually watches him, but she's at her daughter's for Christmas. I didn't think before speaking. I can watch him. Both Marcus and Eli looked at me. Marcus's expression was uncertain. Carter, you don't have to. I want to. I meant it. You helped me last night? Let me return the favor. Marcus wavered, clearly weighing the wisdom of leaving his kid with a stranger. But whatever he saw in my face must have reassured him, because he finally nodded. Okay, but Eli, you have to be on your best behavior, all right? Listen to Carter. I will. Eli promised solemnly. Marcus crouched down to his son's level. I'll be back as soon as I can. 2 hours? Max. You need anything? You call me right away? He stood, catching my eye. There was something vulnerable in his expression, a trust he was extending that felt significant. Thank you. No problem. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with a 6-year-old and a sudden, overwhelming awareness that I had no idea what I was doing. Eli stared at me expectantly. Want to build a castle? Sure, I said, because what else was I going to do? We spent the next hour on the floor, constructing an elaborate fortress out of blocks. Eli narrated the whole thing. There were knights and dragons and a princess who definitely didn't need rescuing because she had a sword. I found myself getting into it, suggesting architectural improvements and defending against imaginary attacks. You're good at this, Eli announced, carefully balancing a block on top of our tower. At building castles? At playing. He looked at me seriously. Some grown-ups don't know how to play, but you do. Was such a simple observation, but it hit me harder than it should have, because Eli was right. I'd forgotten how to play, how to just exist in the moment without worrying about what came next. Can I ask you something? Eli said suddenly. Sure. Are you sad? The question caught me completely off guard. Why do you ask that? Because you look sad. Like Daddy did after Mommy left. Eli's gray eyes, so much like Marcus's, studied me with uncomfortable perception. But Daddy's not sad anymore. So maybe you won't be sad forever either. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to explain to a 6-year-old that I was more than sad, that I was lost and confused and questioning everything I thought I knew about myself. Maybe you're right, I said finally. Eli smiled, satisfied with that answer. Then his stomach growled, loud and unmistakable. Lunch, I suggested. Grilled cheese? Eli announced. Daddy makes the best grilled cheese. Of course he did. I wondered if there was anything Marcus wasn't good at. I headed into the kitchen, Eli trailing behind me, and started rummaging through the fridge. Bread, cheese, butter, the basics were all there. I could handle grilled cheese. I'd lived alone for 5 years. I knew my way around a kitchen. As I cooked, Eli sat at the table, swinging his legs and chattering about his school friends and his favorite TV show and a million other topics. I found myself actually listening, asking questions, gauging in a way I hadn't with anyone in months. The sandwiches were just the right amount of golden brown when I plated them. Eli took a bite and declared them pretty good, which I took as high praise. Do you have any kids? Eli asked between bites. No. Do you want kids? It was such an innocent question, but it opened up a whole territory I'd never let myself explore. Did I want kids? I'd never really thought about it. My mom had always assumed I'd settle down with a nice girl, have a family, continue the Hayes legacy. But that future had always felt distant and abstract, like something that was supposed to happen to someone else. I don't know, I said honestly. I never really thought about it. You should have kids, Eli informed me seriously. You'd be a good dad. The certainty in his voice made my throat tight. Why do you say that? Because you're nice. And you listen. And you make pretty good grilled cheese? Eli grinned. Those are the important things. I laughed, surprised by how much this kid's opinion mattered to me. Well, thank you. That's very kind. We finished lunch and moved back to the living room, where Eli showed me how to play some elaborate game involving his action figures and a complex backstory I struggled to follow. But I tried, and Eli seemed happy with the effort. When Marcus finally came home, I was lying on the floor with a toy dinosaur in one hand, engaged in what Eli assured me was an epic battle with a robot. Having fun? Marcus asked from the doorway, and there was something in his voice amusement. Maybe, but also something warmer. I looked up and saw him watching us with an expression I couldn't quite read. His hair was damp from snow, his jacket spotted with water, and he looked exhausted. But he was smiling. Daddy. Eli launched himself at his father. Carter's really good at playing. We built a castle, and had lunch, and fought dragons. Did you now? Marcus ruffled his son's hair, but his eyes stayed on me. Sounds like you guys had quite the afternoon. I sat up, suddenly aware of how ridiculous I must look, a grown man in a police uniform, sprawled on the floor with toys scattered around him. Everything okay at the garage? As okay as it can be, with a burst pipe on Christmas? Marcus sighed. But we got it under control. Thanks for watching, Eli. It was no problem.
Bye.
I stood, brushing off my pants. He's a great kid. He is. Marcus's expression softened as he looked at his son. Eli, why don't you go wash up for dinner? Eli scampered off, leaving Marcus and me alone in the living room. The afternoon light was fading, casting everything in shades of gold and shadow. I called about your car, Marcus said. Talked to Danny at the garage. He can take a look at it tomorrow, but he says it might be a few days before he can get the parts. A few days? I echoed, trying to process that. But I can't just stay here, why not? Marcus crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe. You don't have anywhere else to go, do you? He wasn't wrong. My apartment was 3 hours away. I was on leave from work. And the idea of going back to that empty space felt unbearable. I don't want to impose, I said weakly. You're not. Marcus's gray eyes held mine, steady and sure. Stay, Carter. At least until your car's fixed. Eli clearly likes having you around, and he paused, something flickering across his face. And I don't mind the company. There was a weight to those words, an invitation that felt like more than just hospitality. I should have questioned it, should have kept my distance. But I didn't want to. Okay, I heard myself say. Thank you. Marcus smiled, and it felt like something settled between us. Something unspoken, but significant. Dud. Now, how do you feel about helping me make dinner? The next few days passed in a blur of domesticity that felt surreal. I helped Marcus cook meals, played endless games with Eli, watched Christmas movies curled up on the couch. It was like stepping into someone else's life, trying it on to see if it fit. And the terrifying thing was, it did fit. Better than my own life had in years, Marcus was easy to be around. He didn't push me to talk about the things I was running from, but he created space for me to share if I wanted to. We'd sit up late after Eli went to bed, drinking coffee or whiskey depending on the night, talking about everything and nothing. I learned that Marcus had grown up in Cedarwood, left for college, came back when Eli's mom got pregnant, that he'd bought the garage with a friend, built it from nothing into something successful, that he read science fiction novels and made terrible puns and could fix just about anything with his hands, and I told him things I'd never told anyone. About the pressure of being the golden boy in my family, the one who was supposed to have it all figured out. About the slow realization that I'd been living someone else's dream, not my own. About the fear that gripped me every time I put on my uniform, the knowledge that I was one freeze away from getting someone killed. You know what I think? Marcus said one night, both of us sitting on the porch, despite the cold, sharing a blanket and a bottle of whiskey. I think you're being too hard on yourself. I took a swig of whiskey, letting it burn down my throat. Let my partner get hurt. You hesitated. That's human. Marcus turned to look at me, his face illuminated by the porch light. You're not a machine, Carter. You're allowed to have doubts, not in my line of work. And maybe your line of work isn't right for you. He said it gently, but it still felt like a punch. There's no shame in that. I wanted to argue, wanted to defend the career I'd built, the identity I'd constructed around being Officer Carter Hayes, but sitting there with Marcus, in the quiet of a winter night in a town I'd stumbled into by accident, all my defenses felt flimsy. I don't know who I am without the uniform, I admitted. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, So figure it out. You have time, do I? The department's going to want an answer eventually. Either I go back or I quit. And Marcus shifted closer, and I was suddenly very aware of his proximity, of the warmth radiating from his body, the way his shoulder pressed against mine under the blanket. What do you want to do? It was the same question he'd asked on Christmas morning, and I still didn't have a good answer. I trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. Because what I wanted was complicated and terrifying. I wanted to stop feeling like I was drowning. I wanted to wake up without dread sitting heavy in my chest. I wanted to feel the way I'd felt these past few days light. Purposeful, present. I wanted to stay here. In this little house with Marcus and Eli, playing pretend for just a bit longer. But I couldn't say any of that. It was too much, too raw. Marcus didn't push. He just sat with me in the silence, sharing warmth and whiskey. And somehow, that felt like enough. On the third day, Eli asked me to read him a bedtime story. Marcus had been called back to the garage for another emergency, and I'd volunteered to handle the nighttime routine. It had seemed simple enough: dinner, bath, pajamas, bed. But as I stood in Eli's doorway, holding a well-worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are, I felt completely out of my depth. Come on, Carter. Eli was already under the covers, his stuffed dinosaur clutched in one hand. This is the best story. I sat on the edge of his bed and started reading. Eli snuggled into his pillow, eyes fixed on the pictures as I turned each page. When I got to the part where Max returns home and his supper is waiting, still hot, Eli sighed contentedly. That's the best part, he said. When he comes home and everything's okay? Yeah, I agreed quietly. It is. Eli yawned, his eyes starting to drift closed. Carter. Yeah, buddy. I'm glad your car broke down. The simplicity of it, the innocence, made my chest ache. Me too. Will you stay forever? It was the kind of question only a kid could ask. Direct, hopeful, completely unguarded. And I didn't know how to answer it. I'll stay as long as I can, I said, which felt like a cop-out and the truth all at once. That seemed to satisfy him. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out, his small face peaceful in sleep. I sat there for a moment longer, watching him, feeling the weight of something I couldn't quite name. When I came downstairs, Marcus was just getting home. He looked exhausted, his clothes smelling like motor oil and cold air. How'd it go? He asked. He's asleep. We read about the wild things. Marcus smiled. That's his favorite. He shrugged off his jacket, then paused, looking at me. Thank you. For being here. I should be thanking you, I said. You've done more for me in the past few days than anyone has in years. Maybe we're doing things for each other. Marcus moved closer, and suddenly the space between us felt charged. Electric. I should have stepped back. Should have maintained some kind of boundary, but I didn't want to. Marcus, I started, not sure what I was going to say, but he beat me to it. Can I ask you something? Yeah, are you gay? The question hung in the air between us, direct and unafraid. I could have lied, could have deflected or laughed it off, but something about Marcus, about this whole surreal situation, made me want to be honest. I don't know, I said, and it was the most truthful answer I'd given anyone. Maybe I've never. I've always dated women because that's what was expected, but I trailed off. Frustrated by my inability to articulate something I'd never let myself fully examine, Marcus nodded slowly, like he was processing that. And now I think maybe I've been lying to myself for a long time. The admission felt huge, terrifying. It's about a lot of things that must be exhausting, it is. I laughed, but it came out shaky. Everything's exhausting lately. Marcus reached out then, his hand finding my shoulder. It was just a simple touch, friendly and grounding, but it sent electricity through my entire body. You don't have to figure it all out right now, he said quietly. You're allowed to just be. Just be. When was the last time I'd given myself permission to do that? We stood there for a moment, Marcus's hand still on my shoulder, something unspoken passing between us. Then he pulled back, the moment breaking. I'm going to clean up, he said, his voice slightly rougher than usual. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen if you're hungry. He disappeared upstairs, leaving me standing in the living room, my heart racing for reasons I didn't want to examine too closely. The garage called the next morning. The part they needed for my car would take at least a week to arrive. A week? I repeated into the phone, trying to process that. Danny, Marcus's business partner, sounded apologetic. Sorry, man. It's a specialty part. And with the holidays, shipping's backed up. I can try to rush it, but no, it's fine. Thanks for trying. I hung up and stared at the phone in my hand. A week. I'd be here for at least another week, living in Marcus's house, playing house with him and Eli. It's pretending like this was my life. The smart thing would be to find alternative transportation. Rent a car, take a bus, get back to my real life. But when I tried to imagine leaving, something in my chest tightened painfully. Bad news? Marcus asked, appearing in the doorway with 2 mugs of coffee. I accepted one gratefully. Car won't be ready for at least a week. I can try to rent something, or you could stay. Marcus leaned against the counter, casual, but there was something careful in his expression. The offer still stands. Marcus, I can't just live on your couch for a week. Why not? He raised an eyebrow. You've been helpful around here. Eli adores you, and He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I like having you here. The confession hung between us, weighted with all the things we weren't saying. I like being here, I admitted. But I don't want to overstay my welcome. You won't. Marcus held my gaze. Stay, Carter, please. There was something vulnerable in that please. Something that made my decision for me. Okay, I said. I'll stay. Marcus's smile was bright and genuine. It did dangerous things to my pulse. Over the next few days, we fell into an easy routine. Marcus would leave for work in the mornings, and I'd take care of Eli, making breakfast, playing games. Sometimes walking to the small park at the end of the street despite the cold. In the evenings, we'd all cook dinner together. Eli chattering about his day, while Marcus and I moved around each other in the kitchen with increasing familiarity. It felt domestic, real, like something I could build a life around. And that terrified me, because I knew this wasn't real. This was a pause, a detour, a brief respite from the life I was supposed to return to. Eventually, my car would be fixed. Eventually, I'd have to go back to the city, face my sergeant, make a decision about my future. But I kept pushing that thought away, living in the moment the way Marcus had told me to. One evening, after Eli was in bed, Marcus suggested we watch a movie. We settled onto the couch with blankets and popcorn, and I tried not to think about how couple-like this all felt. The movie was some action thriller I'd seen before, but I couldn't focus on it. I was too aware of Marcus beside me, the way our legs were almost touching under the blanket, the warmth of his body in the small space between us. You okay? Marcus asked, pausing the movie. You seem distracted. Yeah, I didn't know how to finish that sentence. Just attracted to you in a way that scares me. Just realizing I might not be as straight as I thought. Just wishing this could be my real life. Marcus was watching me with that perceptive gaze that saw too much. Talk to me. What do you want me to say? It came out more defensively than I intended. The truth. Marcus shifted to face me fully. Whatever it is you're thinking right now, my heart was racing. This was at the moment where I could either be honest or retreat back into the safety of denial. and I was so tired of being safe. I'm thinking, I said slowly, that I don't want to leave. That these past few days have been the best I've felt in years. That being here with you and Eli feels more right than anything in my life has felt in a long time. Marcus's expression was unreadable. And that scares you. Terrifies me. I laughed, but it sounded broken. Because I don't know what it means. I don't know if I'm just running for my old life or if I'm running toward something new. And I don't know what you want from me. What I want. Marcus moved closer, his hand finding mine under the blanket. I want you to stop overthinking everything. I want you to just feel. His hand in mine felt right, natural, like something I'd been missing without knowing it. I don't know how to do that, I admitted. Yes. You do? Marcus's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. You've been doing it all week. You've been present, engaged, real. That's all feeling is. I looked down at our joined hands, trying to process the storm of emotions in my chest. Fear and hope and want and confusion, all tangled together. Marcus, I trailed off, not sure what I was trying to say. You don't have to have all the answers, Marcus said gently. We can figure it out as we go. What if I figure it out and it's not what you want? What if you figure it out and it's exactly what I want? Marcus countered. His gray eyes held mine, steady and sure. What if this is real? Us. He'd said us like we were already a unit. Like this was something that could exist beyond this weird liminal space we'd been living in. Is it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Real? Marcus leaned in, slowly enough that I could have pulled away if I wanted to. But I didn't want to. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. I don't know, he said honestly. But I'd like to find out. Then he kissed me. It was gentle, tentative, a question more than a statement. And for a moment, my brain short-circuited, unable to process what was happening. I'd never kissed a man before. Didn't know how it was supposed to feel, what I was supposed to do, but then instinct took over and I was kissing him back. My hand found his shirt, pulling him closer. His fingers tangled in my hair, and everything else my job, my family. My carefully constructed identity faded into background noise. When we finally pulled apart, both of us breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against mine, still scared. He asked, terrified, I admitted, but also more sure of something than I've been in years. Marcus smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Good. We sat there for a long moment, foreheads pressed together, learning the rhythm of each other's breathing. Then Marcus pulled back slightly, his expression growing serious. I need you to understand something, he said. I have Eli. He comes first, always. And if whatever this is between us, if it's going to be anything, I need to know you're serious. That you're not just figuring yourself out at our expense. I would never. I started, but Marcus held up a hand. But I need to hear you say it. Thought about Eli, about how much he'd come to mean to me in just a week. About the trust Marcus was extending by even considering this. It would be so easy to fuck this up, to hurt them both. I can't promise I have everything figured out, I said carefully. But I can promise that I care about you both. That I'm not just using this as an escape, and that whatever happens, I won't hurt Eli. Marcus studied me for a long moment, searching for something in my face. Whatever he found must have satisfied him, because he nodded. Okay then, let's take this slow. See where it goes. Slow, I agreed, even though everything in me wanted to rush forward. To claim this thing between us before it could slip away, we finished the movie, or at least. It played while we sat curled together on the couch, not really watching. Marcus's hand stayed in mine, our fingers intertwined. And it felt like the most natural thing in the world. When the credits rolled, Marcus stood, pulling me up with him. Come on, you're not sleeping on the couch anymore. My heart stuttered. Marcus, relax. He smiled. I have a guest room. It's been Eli's playroom, but there's a bed in there. You should have some actual privacy. Relief and disappointment warred in my chest. Right, thank you. He led me upstairs to a small room filled with toys and books. There was indeed a bed, neatly made with clean sheets. Marcus lingered in the doorway, and I could see him wrestling with something. For the record, he said finally, I wanted to invite you to my room. But slow, I finished for him. I know, it's okay, is it? I crossed the room to where he stood, then did something brave. I kissed him again, quick and sweet. It is. Thank you for being patient with me. Marcus's hand came up to cup my face, and his expression was so soft, it made my chest ache. Thank you for being honest. We said goodnight, and I lay in the small bed surrounded by Eli's toys, my mind racing. I'd kissed a man. I'd kissed Marcus, and it had felt right in a way that nothing else in my life ever had. I didn't know what that meant for my future. Didn't know if I could build a life around this feeling, or if it would crumble the moment I tried to examine it too closely. But for now, for tonight, I let myself feel the lingering warmth of Marcus's kiss and the hope that maybe, just maybe, I was finally on the right path. The next morning, everything felt different. Charged with possibility and terror in equal measure, Eli noticed immediately. Why are you smiling so much? He asked over breakfast. I glanced at Marcus, who was trying not to laugh. I'm just happy to be here. Oh? Eli considered this, then shrugged and went back to his cereal. Okay, kids were remarkably accepting, I was learning. They didn't question or analyze. They just accepted what was in front of them. After Marcus left for work, Eli and I spent the morning building an elaborate train track that took up most of the living room. We were so engrossed that I didn't hear my phone ring the first time. The second time, Eli pointed it out. Your phone is buzzing. I glanced at the screen and felt my stomach drop. Mom, I'd been ignoring her calls for days, but I couldn't avoid her forever. I need to take this, I told Eli. Can you keep playing for a minute? He nodded, and I stepped into the kitchen, my heart already racing. Hi, Mom, Carter. Finally, her voice was sharp with worry and frustration. I've been trying to reach you for days. Where are you? I'm fine. I just needed some time. Time. Carter, it's been a week since Christmas, and nobody's heard from you. Your sergeant called me, asking if I knew where you were. What's going on? I leaned against the counter, trying to figure out how to explain something I barely understood myself. I'm in a town called Cedarwood. My car broke down, and I'm waiting for it to be fixed. Cedarwood. She sounded confused. Where's that? A couple hours outside the city? Look, I'm safe. I'm just taking a break. A break from what? Your job? Your life? Her frustration was building. Carter, you can't just run away from your problems. I'm not running away. Even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. I'm figuring things out. Figuring what out? The sergeant said, you're on leave because you hesitated on a call. That your partner got hurt. Her voice cracked. Baby, why didn't you tell me? Guilt twisted in my gut. Because I knew you'd react like this. Like what? Like a mother who's worried about her son? She took a breath, clearly trying to calm down. Carter, come home. We can talk about this. Figure it out together. I can't. The words came out before I could stop them. Not yet. Why not? Because I'm falling for a man and his kid. And going home means facing the fact that this isn't real, that I can't build a life around a week-long detour. But I couldn't say that. Couldn't tell her that I was questioning everything she'd raised me to be. I just need more time, I said instead. My mom was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice that was almost gentle, Carter, are you okay? Really okay? No? Yes. I don't know. I'm working on it, I said, which felt like the most honest answer I could give. Another pause. Then, okay. But call me more often, please. I worry I will. I promise. We said goodbye, and I stood in the kitchen for a long moment, phone still in my hand. I could hear Eli in the other room making train noises. Through the window, I could see the snow still covering everything, beautiful and isolating. My old life was calling me back, but I wasn't ready to answer that evening. Marcus came home early, which was unusual. He looked stressed, tension written in every line of his body. Bad day? I asked. You could say that. He collapsed onto the couch, rubbing his face. Lost a big client today. They're taking their business to a chain garage in the next town over. I'm sorry it happens. But he didn't sound resigned. He sounded defeated. Just bad timing. We've been struggling since the pandemic, and losing this account. He trailed off, shaking his head. I wanted to fix it. Wanted to do something, anything, to take that worry out of his eyes. But what could I do? I was just a cop on leave, with no money and no real skills outside of law enforcement. Can I do anything? I asked anyway. Marcus looked at me, and something in his expression softened. You're here. That helps. Eli, oblivious to his father's stress, came running in with a drawing. Daddy, look. I drew our family. He thrust the paper at Marcus, who took it with a small smile. I leaned over to look and felt my heart stop. There were 3 stick figures in the drawing. Marcus and Eli clearly labeled, and between them, holding both their hands, was a 3rd figure. Above it, in Eli's careful letters, Carter. That's beautiful, buddy, Marcus said, his voice slightly rough. Eli beamed. Can we put it on the fridge? Of course, as Eli ran to the kitchen, Marcus and I exchanged a look. The drawing felt significant, weighted with meaning neither of us was ready to speak aloud. He thinks you're family, Marcus said quietly. Is that okay? I asked, suddenly unsure. I don't know. Marcus was being honest, which I appreciated, but it feels right. That night, after Eli was in bed, Marcus and I sat on the porch again. It had become our ritual, the cold air, the quiet, the sense that out here could say things we couldn't say in the light of day. My mom called today, I said. Marcus glanced at me. How'd that go? About as well as expected. She wants me to come home. Are you going to? I don't know. I pulled the blanket tighter around us. Eventually, I'll have to. My car will be fixed. I'll have to deal with my job situation. My life. Your life is here too now, Marcus pointed out. Is it? Isn't it? He turned to face me fully. Carter, I don't know what this is between us. But I know it's not nothing. And I know that when you leave, because you will eventually leave, it's going to hurt. The honesty in his voice, the vulnerability, made my chest tight. I don't want to hurt you. Or Eli. I know. But that doesn't change the reality. Marcus's hand found mine. So I guess my question is, what do you want? Not what you think you should want, not what your mom or your sergeant or anyone else expects. What do you, Carter Hayes, actually want? It was the same question he'd asked before, and this time I had an answer. I want to stay, I said. I want to wake up here every morning. I want to make breakfast with Eli and kiss you goodnight and figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be what everyone else needs me to be. But I'm scared of getting this wrong, of fucking up your life and Eli's life because I'm still figuring out my own. I took a shaky breath. What if I'm not ready for this? What if I can't be what you need? What if you can? Marcus countered. What if you're exactly what we need? You don't know that? No, Marcus agreed. But I'm willing to find out. The question is, are you? I looked at him. At the strength in his face, the hope in his eyes, the way he was offering me something precious and fragile. And I thought about Eli, about the drawing on the fridge, about how natural it felt to be part of their lives. Yes, I said, and it felt like jumping off a cliff. Yes, I'm willing to find out. Marcus kissed me then, deep and slow and full of promise. And when we pulled apart, he was smiling. Good, because I already bought extra toothbrushes. I laughed, surprised. Confident, weren't you? Hopeful, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. We sat there for a while longer, wrapped in blankets in each other, watching the snow fall. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The next week passed in a haze of domesticity and discovery. I helped Marcus at the garage a few times, learning the basics of car repair and realizing I actually enjoyed working with my hands. Eli started calling me Carter Dad before Marcus gently corrected him to just Carter, though I noticed he didn't seem upset by it, and Marcus and I grew closer. Navigating this new territory between us with careful honesty, we kissed goodnight held hands when Eli wasn't looking, stole moments of closeness whenever we could. But we kept it slow, mindful of the fact that we were building something that needed a solid foundation. My sergeant called one afternoon. Marcus was at work, and Eli was at a playdate, so I was alone when I answered. "Hayes, been trying to reach you." "I know. I'm sorry I wasn't, but it seemed like the thing to say. Need to come in. We need to talk about your future with the department." My future. The phrase felt heavy, loaded with expectations I wasn't sure I could meet anymore. What if I don't have a future with the department? I asked, silence on the other end. "Then you want to quit?" "I want." I looked around Marcus's living room at Eli's toys and the pictures on the mantle and the life I'd been building here. "I want to consider other options." "Carter," my sergeant's voice was careful, "I get that you've been through something, but don't throw away 5 years because of one bad call. It's not just one call. It's, how did I explain that I'd been drowning for months? That the uniform felt like a cage? That every day I stayed in that job was a day I wasn't being true to myself. I need more time," I said finally. "Time for what?" "To figure out what I really want." Another pause. "Then you've got 2 weeks. After that, I need an answer. You're either back on duty or you're out." 2 weeks. 14 days to make a decision that would define the rest of my life. "Okay," I said. 2 weeks. When Marcus came home that evening, I told him about the call. He listened quietly, not interrupting, just letting me get it all out. "So what are you going to do?" he asked when I finished. "I think I'm going to quit." Right. Saying it out loud felt terrifying and liberating at the same time. I think I've known for a while that I don't want to be a cop anymore. I just didn't know what else I could be. And now I think maybe I want to stay here. Help you with the garage, be part of Eli's life. Be with you. I looked at him, nervous. "If you'll have me?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and panic started to creep in. Maybe I'd been reading this all wrong. Maybe he didn't want me to stay, didn't want this to be permanent. Then he smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. "Are you serious?" "Yeah, if the offer's still open, the offer's open." Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling me into a kiss that was anything but slow. "God, Carter, yes. Stay. Please, stay." We kissed until we were both breathless, until the world narrowed to just us and this moment and the future we were choosing together. When we pulled apart, Marcus rested his forehead against mine. "You're sure? Because once Eli knows, once we tell him you're staying, there's no taking it back. He'll be devastated if you change your mind." "I won't change my mind." For the first time in my life, I was absolutely certain about something. "I want this. I want you. I want us." "Us," Marcus repeated, like he was testing the word. I liked the sound of that. Me too. That night I called my mom back. Told her I was quitting the force, that I was staying in Cedarwood, that I'd met someone, and I was happy. She was quiet for a long time. Then, "Is it a woman?" My heart stuttered. This was at the moment of truth. "No, Mom, it's a man. His name is Marcus, and he has a son, and I'm in love with them both." More silence. I braced myself for disappointment, for rejection, for all the things I'd feared my whole life. "Are you happy?" she finally asked. "Yes. Happier than I've been in years, and that's all that matters." Her voice was thick with emotion. "I just want you to be happy, Carter. I always have." "Really?" I couldn't quite believe it. "Really? Your sister's going to lose her mind when she finds out she was right about you being gay. But Mom?" I laughed despite myself. "I'm just saying. She's had a bet going for years." She paused. "When can I meet him? And his son?" The acceptance in her voice, the genuine interest, made my throat tight. "Whenever you want." We talked for another hour, and by the end of it I felt lighter than I had in months. My mom wasn't perfect, and there would probably be awkward moments ahead. But she was trying, and that was more than I dared to hope for. When I hung up, Marcus was standing in the doorway, having heard at least some of the conversation. "Your mom okay with it?" he asked. "More than okay. She wants to meet you, yeah. Marcus looked pleased and terrified at the same time. No pressure or anything. I pulled him close, wrapping my arms around him. She's going to love you. How could she not? We stood there for a long moment, just holding each other. And I realized that this warmth, this connection, this sense of home was everything I'd been searching for without knowing it. 2 weeks later, I officially resigned from the police force. My sergeant took it better than I expected, even wished me luck. Some of my former colleagues were confused, a few were judgmental, but most just seemed happy that I'd found something that worked for me. I moved my stuff from the apartment in the city to Marcus's house. It didn't take long, I didn't have much. Most of my life had been the job, and without it, I had just a few boxes of clothes and personal items. Eli helped me unpack, chattering excitedly about how I'd be there all the time now. We set up my things in what had been the guest room, though I spent most nights in Marcus's room now. Slow had given way to steady, too sure. The garage became my new workplace. I learned quickly, discovering I had a knack for the mechanical work that surprised both Marcus and me. Danny, Marcus's partner, welcomed me easily into their small team. The work was physical and satisfying in a way police work had never been. And at night, I came home to Marcus and Eli. We made dinner together, did homework, played games. We became a family, officially and unofficially. Eli's drawing still hung on the fridge, a constant reminder of what we'd built. It wasn't always easy. There were moments when I doubted myself, when the weight of what I'd given up felt heavy. Marcus had bad days at the garage, money was sometimes tight, and being a parent to a 6-year-old was harder than I'd imagined. But it was real. It was mine, and I'd never been happier. 3 months after I'd stumbled into Cedarwood on Christmas Eve, Marcus and I were lying in bed. The quiet of the night settled around us. Eli was asleep down the hall and through the window. I could see stars scattered across a clear sky. Hey, Marcus said quietly. Hey yourself, I love you. He'd said it before, and I'd said it back. But it never got old, never lost its power to make my heart race. I love you too, I said, turning to face him. Thank you, for what? For opening your door that night? For giving me a chance? For being patient while I figured myself out? Marcus smiled, his hand finding my face in the darkness. Thank you for being brave enough to stay. We kissed, soft and slow, and I thought about the man I'd been on Christmas Eve. Lost. Alone, running from a life that didn't fit. And now, wrapped in Marcus's arms, part of a family I'd never expected to find. I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The gun that had felt so heavy in my hand that night was locked away now, part of a past I'd left behind. In its place, I held something infinitely more precious: hope, love, and the promise of a future I was choosing for myself. 6 months later, Eli asked if he could call me Dad. We were at the park, Marcus having left us to run to the hardware store for a minute. Eli had been quiet, uncharacteristically so, swinging slowly on the swing set. Can I ask you something? He said finally. Of course, buddy. Is it okay if I have 2 dads? My heart stuttered. What do you mean? Tommy at school has 2 dads. And I have Daddy, but I also have you. So does that mean I have 2 dads too? I knelt down so I was at his eye level. Is that what you want? To call me Dad? Eli nodded seriously. But only if it's okay with you. And with Daddy. I pulled him into a hug, my throat tight with emotion. It's more than okay with me. But let's talk to your daddy first, okay? When Marcus got back and we told him, his eyes got suspiciously bright. Of course it's okay, he said, pulling us both into a hug. We're a family. That's what families do. So Eli started calling me Dad, and I started understanding what it meant to be someone's parent. Not through blood or legal ties, but through choice. Through showing up every day, through being present, through loving someone more than you thought you were capable of. A year after that Christmas Eve, Marcus and I were making dinner while Eli worked on homework at the kitchen table. It was an ordinary evening, the kind that had become our routine. And as I watched Marcus chop vegetables, listened to Eli's pencils scratching across paper, felt the warmth of this life we'd built. I was overwhelmed with gratitude. "What?" Marcus asked, catching my expression. "Nothing. Just, I'm happy," Marcus smiled, leaning over to kiss me quickly. "Me too." "Gross," Eli called from the table. But he was grinning. We laughed, and life continued. Ordinary and extraordinary all at once. 2 years after I'd first knocked on Marcus's door, we stood in front of our friends and family and made it official. Nothing legally binding that would take more paperwork and time, but a commitment ceremony that felt as real as any wedding. My mom was there, having driven up with my sister. She cried through the whole thing, happy tears that she didn't bother to hide. Marcus's small circle of friends filled the other seats, along with some of the regular customers from the garage, and Eli stood between us, holding both our hands, beaming like he'd personally orchestrated the whole thing. When the officiant asked if we promised to love and support each other, to be partners in all things, to build a life based on honesty and trust, we both said yes, without hesitation, and by the power vested in me. "And in the presence of these witnesses, I pronounce you married." The officiant smiled. "You may kiss." We did, and the small gathered crowd cheered. Eli made exaggerated gagging noises, but was still grinning. At the reception afterward, it was just a simple gathering at the house. With food and music and the people we loved, my mom pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you," she said. "You built something beautiful here." "Thanks, Mom. Marcus is wonderful." "Eli, too." She squeezed my hand. "You made the right choice, leaving that old life behind." I looked across the yard, where Marcus was spinning Eli in a circle while both of them laughed. "Yeah," I agreed. I really did. That night, after everyone had gone home and Eli was in bed, Marcus and I sat on the porch. It was summer now, warm and humid, fireflies dancing in the darkness. "Happy?" Marcus asked. "Incredibly." I laced our fingers together. "You, the happiest." He leaned his head on my shoulder. "Who would have thought, huh? A burned-out cop and a single dad. A match made in a Christmas Eve snowstorm. The best kind of match." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the fireflies, feeling the weight of the day settle into contentment. Somewhere in the house I could hear the faint sounds of Eli's music box, the one Marcus wound up for him every night. This was my life now. Simple, ordinary, perfect. And I wouldn't change a single thing. 5 years after that Christmas Eve, the garage was thriving. Marcus and I had expanded, hired more staff, built a reputation for quality work. We'd bought the house, made it truly ours with renovations and updates. Eli was 11 now, already showing signs of the person he'd become. Curious, creative. We'd built a life. Not the one I'd been raised to expect, not the one my former colleagues would have predicted. Real and solid and full of love. Sometimes I thought about that night standing in the precinct parking lot, gun still warm, wondering if I'd thrown everything away. And I realized I had. I'd thrown away a life that was slowly killing me, an identity that never fit, expectations that weren't my own. And in return, I'd found myself. Found Marcus. Found Eli. Found home. On Christmas Eve, 5 years to the day, we stood in the living room decorating the tree. Eli was carefully hanging ornaments he'd made over the years, while Marcus untangled lights with infinite patience. I was in charge of the star for the top. "Remember when you first got here?" Eli asked suddenly. "On Christmas?" "I remember," I said. "I'm glad your car broke down." Marcus and I exchanged a look, both of us smiling. "Me too, buddy," I said. "Me too." As we finished the tree, I thought about the man I'd been that night, lost and scared and running. And then I looked at the man I'd become. Father, a partner, a mechanic. Someone who knew who he was and what he wanted. The transformation hadn't been easy. There had been hard conversations and harder realizations. Days when I doubted everything, nights when the fear felt overwhelming. But Marcus had been there through all of it. Patient, steady, believing in me even when I couldn't believe in myself. He'd given me space to figure things out and support when I needed it. He'd shown me what love looked like when it was real. All done, Eli announced, stepping back to admire the tree. Marcus plugged in the lights, and the room filled with warm, golden glow. We stood there together. The three of us, and I felt a surge of gratitude so intense it almost hurt. "Perfect," Marcus said, slipping his hand into mine. "Yeah," I agreed, squeezing back. "Perfect." That night, after Eli was asleep and the house was quiet, Marcus and I lay in bed. 5 years of this, of us of building something beautiful out of the broken pieces I'd brought to his door. "Thank you," I said into the darkness. "For what?" "For saving me." Marcus rolled over to face me, his hand finding my face. "You saved yourself, Carter. I just gave you a safe place to land." "Same thing," Marcus said firmly. "You did the hard work. You made the choices. You built this life. I'm just lucky enough to be part of it." I kissed him, pouring 5 years of gratitude and love into it. When we pulled apart, we were both smiling. "Merry Christmas," Marcus whispered. "Merry Christmas," I whispered back. And as I drifted off to sleep, wrapped in Marcus's arms, I thought about that Christmas Eve 5 years ago. About the cop who was lost and alone, who stumbled into a stranger's life and found everything he didn't know he was looking for. I'd set out that night with no destination, no plan, just a desperate need to escape. And I'd ended up here in this bed, in this house. In this life, having found more than I'd ever dared to hope for. Sometimes getting lost is the only way to find your way home, and I'd finally found mine. The ND, did this story touch your heart? If you felt the emotion, the connection, the hope in Carter and Marcus's journey, I'd love to hear from you. Like this video if their love story moved you. Subscribe for more heartfelt LGBTQ+ stories. Comment below. Should I tell you more stories like this? What kind of love story do you want to see next? Your support means everything and helps me create more beautiful stories of love, hope, and finding where you truly belong. Drop a comment. What was your favorite moment in Carter and Marcus's story?
आशिक हूँ तेरा राजा बाजार का, लगता है मुझको नशा ये प्यार का। आशिक हूँ तेरा राजा बाजार का, लगता है मुझको नशा ये प्यार का। मुस्कुरा के बात करती हो, आदतें खराब करती हो। ना दिखो बेताब लगता हूँ, आशिक बेहिसाब लगता हूँ। ऐसा नशा है तेरे दीदार का, आशिक हूँ तेरा राजा बाजार का, लगता है मुझको नशा ये प्यार का। जिंदगी हसीन लगती है जब ये जालिम प्यार होता है। सांसों में सांस आती है जब तेरा दीदार होता है। नखरा है ऐसा मेरी सरकार का, आशिक हूँ तेरा राजा बाजार का, लगता है मुझको नशा ये प्यार का। नखरा इसका टॉप पर आती है टिकटॉक पर, नैनो से है नैन मिलाती, लड़कों की है दिल जलाती, पिंडी में है चर्चा इसका, नीरा जितना खर्चा इसका। मैंने बोला इसको मेट्रो में बिठाऊंगा, कैपिटल ले जाऊंगा, F7 भी घुमाऊंगा, मोनाल भी दिखाऊंगा, सेंटोरस भी ले जाऊंगा। आशिक हूँ तेरा राजा बाजार का, लगता है मुझको नशा ये प्यार का। मौसमों की बेकरारी को आजमा के जान जाओगी, हिज्र की आजमाइश में एक दिन पहचान जाओगी। कहना है मेरे दिल बेकरार का, आशिक हूँ तेरा राजा बाजार का। लगता है मुझको नशा ये प्यार